Well, welcome back. Now, not satisfied with dragnet collection of our data on cell phones and the internet, now we learn that the feds are openly admitting that they're planning black box vehicle mandates to track, tax, and even remotely control all personal vehicles. This is from Mike Adams at Natural News. We covered this on InfoWars today. He makes three very important points. He said the government wants to track your every move. In other words, they want to decrease your privacy. Then he says governments can turn every road into a toll road. In other words, they're going to increase the taxes that you pay. And the third point he makes is that two-way communication allows government to control your vehicle. In other words, they're going to get physical control over you. Now, this is very pernicious because unlike the current tax, the road use tax that we have now, a tax on fuel, this is something that's not going to be anonymous. It's kind of like the analogy between a sales tax that is anonymous and an income tax where they have to know everything about you in order to collect it. That has a lot of people very concerned about the privacy implications of this. We've talked about this in the past. In April 2012, Paul Joseph Watson had a story talking about the implications of MAP 21. But main thing here, too, is also notice that this is a very deceptive agenda. This is something they've been hiding for quite some time. First of all, notice that they have a list of cars that going back by make and year, we see that these EDR black boxes were put in the 90s and mid-90s and late 90s. It's primarily some American car companies at GM and others. Then in 2011, we start seeing all of the car companies starting to add these boxes to it. Now 96% of them have it. At that time, in 2011, the Fed started requiring a standardized protocols, and anybody that had installed these black boxes in their cars, the manufacturers who had installed them. And then subsequent to that, as part of MAP 21 in 2012, and this is a story that Paul Joseph Watson wrote about in April of 2012, InfoWars pointed out that there were a lot of very troubling things in that legislation. They were putting in powers for the IRS to stop you by accusing you of owing them money. But also in that document, back in the MAP 21, it makes the connection between funding and mandatory black boxes, which would be mandatory for all cars by 2015. So this is something that they've known about for quite a while, but notice the deception. They were telling everyone that this was simply about collecting a couple of seconds before and after you had a crash. That's for the insurance companies. Now they're admitting, with the articles that came out this weekend, the LA Times and elsewhere, they're admitting that they're storing all of that data. It's kind of like the prevarication about metadata versus collecting all of your other data. This is the way the government rolls this stuff out. This is the way they lie to people about it. MAP 21 is Agenda 21 for our transportation and our ability to move around. And also notice that at the top of this are the insurance companies. They're the big partners. They're the big thing driving this kind of corporate fascism with the insurance companies at the very top. The LA Times pointed out something that I find very troubling. An alliance between what they call libertarians and environmentalists on this new tax going through black boxes. And here's a quote from Adrian Moore, Vice President of Policy at Reason. He said, "This is not just a tax going into a black hole. People are paying more directly into what they're getting." Well, actually, he of all people ought to know that government is a black hole, especially Washington. But it's not just allocating it to what people are using. As I mentioned before, this is taking away the anonymity of a sales tax, of a gas tax that you would pay into what you're actually using. And it's also penalizing people who have taken it on themselves to get fuel-efficient cars. And the environmentalists of all people should understand that. So now they're going to be penalized. They went out, they bought these fuel-efficient cars. Now they're going to be charged not on the fuel that they use, but they're going to be charged on the miles that they drive. Why? So we can know everything about everybody and exert full control and raise taxes at the same time. But it's also disappointing to see that environmentalists have thrown in their lot with Obama on the nuclear power industry, especially concerning when we look at what's been going on at Fukushima for the last 2.5 years. The update to that story today, Washington's blog, we carry that on InfoWars, Fukushima is here. And they point out that only about 5% of the directly discharged radiation was deposited within a radius of 80 kilometers from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station. The rest was distributed over the Pacific Ocean. And they point out that last year, in some scientific studies from NOAA and from GEOMAR, they saw that over the next 6 to 9 years, we're going to see concentrations on the west coast of North America that are 10 times higher than those in Japan. And that's assuming that even at the levels that we see now, that's very troubling. It's also assuming that we're not going to have any more problems with Fukushima, and there are about 85 times the amount of radiation still to be released there if it's a catastrophic accident, as we saw with Hiroshima and other major nuclear incidents from a nuclear bomb. So these concerns about nuclear power plants are very great, and yet we see Obama and other environmentalist groups saying that nuclear power is more green than any other form of energy we have, even ridiculously saying it's more green than photovoltaics. Now, stay around. Right after the break, we're going to be back, and we're going to have some information about what you can do to take care of your health with these kinds of dangerous threats.
I'm Anthony Gucciardi, and as you know, I created what is now the third largest natural health website in the world, Natural Society. And on my quest to find the absolute best in natural health, I reviewed hundreds of different products, interviewed different formulators and doctors and medical experts. And when I discovered Dr. Edward Group, who is with me today in the InfoWars studio right now, I was amazed at what he had to offer and the formulations he was doing, completely free of GMOs, completely free of contaminants. So when I started teaming up with Alex Jones of Infowars.com through my website StoryLeak, we discovered that that also coincided with his research. He was looking for about 2 years on the best things to give his family, especially his children, and we found Dr. Edward Group, and he was developing this new form of nascent iodine, double strength, better than any competitor, just absolutely free of contaminants and the best on the market. And I said, what we should do is we should promote this because this is a great product. And he agreed. He looked into it extensively before he would even consider it. And now we're actually offering it through the new line InfoWars Health. And I'm here with Dr. Group because we're going to talk about iodine, why you need it. It's an excellent preparedness source, and it's also great to take before disaster strikes. But Dr. Group, thanks for joining us today, and talk a little bit about nascent iodine, why it's the best, and give us some background on yourself as well.
Well, thanks for having me on, Anthony. It's always good to be in the InfoWars studio and being able to reach millions of people out there and being able to help millions of people, because iodine is something that every single person, every single family should have a lot of stocked up in their medicine cabinet. Recently with Fukushima, we're starting to see radiation levels in water. We're starting to see massive thyroid problems across the world. I mean, iodine is an essential mineral that is pretty much been lost and not talked about in the medical community at all. But I mean, it has major roles to play, and I highly recommend everybody takes iodine on a regular basis. My company is Global Healing Center, and it's been our mission to provide the highest quality, which is GMO-free, certified organic, vegan, no animal testing, searching the globe, and then creating the highest quality supplements available. I mean, even to the point where we use borosilicate glass in our production as opposed to everybody else out there that uses stainless steel. But back to iodine, I mean, iodine is extremely effective, and there's a lot of different types of iodine out there. There's potassium iodide, there's iodates out there, and there's standard alcohol tinctures of just iodine. What we've done is we've actually created what's called a detoxified iodine or a nascent iodine. Now that means it's in an atomic form, and the body doesn't have to break it down, and it goes directly into the thyroid gland, and the thyroid regulates your metabolism, regulates your sleep patterns, regulates your hormones. And with having iodine in the thyroid will not be damaged when you take in radioisotopes of iodine-131, which is the radioactive form of iodine. Now, the difference between most iodine supplements out there and the Survival Shield is that it's an atomic form, which means it has one bond, a monatomic bond, instead of a diatomic bond of iodine.
Yeah, exactly. And what's key too is nascent iodine is the purest form. It's the strongest form. It's the most bioavailable form. But more importantly is the fact that some of these products contain GMOs, contain contaminants, contain USDA slaughterhouse glycerin, as you can expand upon. And that was my thing when looking for this, because I knew, number one, nascent iodine was the best. I knew that. There was no question about that. The doctors that I talked to and the researchers. And then the number thing with me and Alex was, okay, we know that, but we need to find something that's free of everything that we are against, everything the medical establishment pushes on us, like the GMOs, like the USDA slaughterhouse glycerin. So talk about the additives that are on average in the nascent iodine supplements that we have eliminated entirely.
Well, most supplements out there that contain iodine are bonded to a salt, which is either going to be potassium iodide or sodium iodide, which is what you find in table salt. Although they don't, only about 1/5 of the table salt these days is iodized, and that's another reason why there's such a deficiency in iodine. But they use alcohol. I mean, and the body reacts negatively towards alcohol, and it's something that you shouldn't be putting in. You know, all the people that are non-alcoholic don't have another option. What we use is we use a USP kosher certified vegetable glycerin base, which is extremely good at bonding to the iodine and delivering the iodine into your system at a very fast rate. So what that can ensure everybody is that they have a safe, effective iodine supplement that they can use on a regular basis, and they can do what's called iodine loading in case there is high levels of radiation in the air. What's happening is these clouds of radiation from Fukushima are actually coming across the Pacific. Not only is the water in the Pacific Ocean extremely contaminated, but the air, and when it rains down these, you know, highly radioactive substances, not only iodine-131, but cesium-137 and strontium and other forms. So the iodine, if you don't have enough iodine in your body and in your thyroid gland, then the thyroid will pick up the radiotrophic iodine, which is the 131, and it will start destroying and splitting your DNA and start destroying your thyroid. And as a matter of fact, our medical profession actually gives people iodine-131 to destroy their thyroid gland and destroy the production of T3 and T4, which are the thyroid hormones for hyperactive thyroid or hyperthyroid syndrome. So, I mean, we should be looking at how we can repair the thyroid, not how we can kill the thyroid.
The bottom line is that with this nascent iodine, with this survival shield at InfoWarsLife.com, you can start preparing yourself now. Because with this nascent iodine, you can take it today and on a daily basis to prepare yourself and your family for any form of disaster, as opposed to taking an emergency chemical type of iodine that is actually toxic and dangerous to your body. So you can start preparing now, and it's smart to not wait until a disaster strikes. The background radiation over the past 60 years has dramatically increased. We're looking at incidents like now Fukushima just exacerbating this effect, and they've almost doubled, or more than doubled if you look at certain data, over the last 60 years. It's essential to start protecting your family now before it's too late, and we're already facing radiation threats. So go to InfoWarsLife.com and start looking at Survival Shield. Pick it up now, because realistically, honestly, we've seen it before in the past, there's a run on iodine right now. If Fukushima blows up and it looks like there's numerous weather events going towards it, there will not be any left. Start preparing yourself now before it is too late, and get your hands on some for your family.
And one other thing is the nascent iodine is safe for children and even mothers that are breastfeeding.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Dr. Group.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, that's it for tonight's news, but if you're a Prison Planet subscriber, stay tuned. After the news, we're going to have a video of a Walmart security guard that's actually going way over the top on a power trip, as well as 1 week after the open carry rally at the Alamo, we still have police in Austin falsely arresting people. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned after the news for more special reports.
Now you can watch The Alex Jones Show live as it happens at Infowars.com/show.
You'll find links to all of our content there and a free 15-day trial for Prison Planet TV.
More than 60 movies and documentaries all in one place at Infowars.com/show.
Control your vehicle. In other words, they're going to get physical control over you. Now, this is very pernicious because unlike the current tax, the road use tax that we have now, a tax on fuel, this is something that's not going to be anonymous. It's kind of like the analogy between a sales tax that is anonymous and an income tax where they have to know everything about you in order to collect it. That has a lot of people very concerned about the privacy implications of this. We've talked about this in the past and mandates to track, tax, and even remotely control all personal vehicles. This is from Mike Adams at Natural News. We covered this on InfoWars today. He makes 3 very important points. He said the government wants to track your every move. In other words, they want to decrease your privacy. Then he says governments can turn every road into a toll road. In other words, they're going to increase the taxes that you pay. And the third point he makes is that two-way communication allows government to control Well, welcome back. Now, not satisfied with Dragnet collection of our data on cell phones and the internet, now we learn that the feds are openly admitting that they're planning black box vehicle and car companies at GM and others. Then in 2011, we start seeing all of the car companies starting to add these boxes to it. Now 96% of them have it. At that time, in 2011, the feds started requiring a standardized protocols in anybody that had installed these black boxes in their cars, the manufacturers who had installed them. And then subsequent to that, as part of MAP 20 April 2012, Paul Joseph Watson had a story talking about the implications of MAP 21. But main thing here, too, is also notice that this is a very deceptive agenda. This is something they've been hiding for quite some time. First of all, notice that they have a list of cars that, going back by make and year, we see that these EDR black boxes were put in the 90s and mid-90s and late 90s. It's primarily some American